when you talked about, time, and it's a finite resource. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I definitely agree to that. And that's probably the aspect of this that's making more sense to me, is because everybody gets the same amount of time. We get 24 hours in a day.
Welcome to the AI Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Sheridan Wint, and today we're going to dive into the real business value of AI. Now, I've got my longtime friend, John Foster, here, so he can ask the questions that I might not even think about because he's kind of new to AI, right? John, can you tell them a little bit about yourself in case they missed the last episode?
Well, in case you missed the last episode, I have a prior military background, was in the U.S. Navy. I am currently in GovTech. Pretty much cybersecurity is my main focus in life. Cyber guys tend to always be advancing, and the one area that I haven't is AI. And I'm hoping that Sherry can kind of shed some more light on that subject for me, and that way I'm less scared.
All right, all right. The other thing John focuses on is Bigfoot. Inside joke
Sometimes,
from episode 1.
sometimes.
Last time, we unpacked what AI is and what it isn't. Today, we're going to be talking about where AI actually delivers value. And to navigate that, I'm going to have John here help us try to sort through what is hype and what is actually real world ROI. Let's dive in. A lot of businesses hear stories and narratives like AI is either too complex and expensive or it's some magic solution for everything that doesn't actually fix everything, right? John, you heard anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen things all the time that are being like recently, like companies coming out with AI generated, or what I mean, ran by AI, or all this stuff, what I mean, seems like a lot of marketing ploy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. There is a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of marketing, sprinkles going on. And the truth kind of lies somewhere in the middle. AI does have like a practical, measurable business value when it's applied strategically. And sometimes when it's not, it doesn't. It's not worth the paper that it's printed on, as they say. A common early mistake is kind of chasing tools without defining the problem first. Like going and seeing,
Mhm.
oh, this tool does this and this tool does that. Okay, but what problem are we trying to solve? Let's figure that out first. So the real question isn't what AI tool should I use, but instead, what's slowing me down? What's limiting my growth? How can AI help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, how do you use that?
Well, the way that I like to use AI is to help other businesses implement it in their business. I use AI right now for this podcast, for editing it, for removing filler words, for creating short clips, micro content based off the long form content, right? So, just a few examples. But something that I always encourage businesses to think about is getting very specific instead of being so vague, right? Instead of saying we should be using AI, okay, thinking more along the lines of we spend 10 hours a week writing listings. How can AI help us automate that part of our business, right? So, have you noticed anything from businesses that they seem excited about AI, but they don't really know how to connect it to their actual work? Like, have you seen that at work at all?
Yeah, my recent employer, you know, started asking me a lot of things about if I can create like an set up like an AI infrastructure and stuff like that. And it's kind of why I'm here. I mean, I want to learn a little bit more and how to utilize that, integrating that into the process of Navy recruiting, things like that.
Okay.
Probably lead generation, like you mentioned in the first episode, and
Okay. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, the areas that AI tends to help the most are generating revenue, cutting costs, or analyzing data. Let's kind of break it down into when it comes to generating revenue or cutting costs. Let's just talk about saving time and reducing repetition, right? Because AI can automate routine tasks, low value tasks, data entry, scheduling, reporting, customer emails, transcribing audio, right? Those types of things. So for example, a real estate team might have bring on a new client who wants to list their property, and they may be able to just enter into their CRM the client's name and address, and the CRM could pass that information along to a workflow where an AI does some research around that property and the neighborhood and it drafts an entire listing around that property just from those two data points, the name and the address. So that could save them a lot of time.
Okay, so you said workflow, and I know we talked about it, but in case they're just tuning in, what is a workflow again?
Just a series of steps. It could be two or three, four tasks in a row to accomplish a specific objective. But one thing I think people don't think about sometimes when they think about ROI, right? A lot of times you'll hear, well, what's the ROI? What's the return on my investment? And people like to talk in terms of dollars, but don't always think about it in terms of time. Even if you save 10 minutes per task, that can really stack up to hundreds, maybe thousands of hours a year, depending on how many times you perform that task. So that's something that I like to remind people is, start small, you can snowball into something bigger. Like we talked about a little bit on the last episode. Are there any like repetitive tasks that you see in at work or in the teams that you work on that you can think of?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that, but let's go back a little bit when you talked about, what I mean, time, and that is it's a finite resource. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I definitely agree to that. And that's probably like the aspect of this that's making more sense to me, is because everybody gets the same amount of time. We get 24 hours in a day. It's not renewable. So, but yeah, an example, with me, like most of the time, just keeping track of meeting minutes and stuff like that, what's said and what's going on. You know what I mean? I trust a short pencil over a long memory any day. That's one of my sayings. That's maybe like some email stuff. You know what I mean?
right. Okay. All right. I think that's a good stopping point for us to hear a message from our friends and sponsors. We'll be right back after this message. Right now, AI is deciding who your next customer trusts, and it might not be you. You might not realize it yet, but ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, all of these models are already deciding who they choose to recommend in industries like yours. And they don't always list options either. Sometimes they give one answer. And if that answer isn't you, then AI just referred your ideal customer to your competitor. That's why we created the free AI Visibility Review. It's a short live session where we will sit down with you and show you what AI thinks of you and your brand and your company, who it thinks is an authority, and what you can do to become the authority that it starts to recommend. Don't just guess where you stand, find out. Schedule your free AI visibility review today at advantagelabs.ai and see if AI knows that your business exists. Imagine what it would do for your business if ChatGPT was actually referring people to you. Advantagelabs.ai, your AI advantage. All right, so I want to move on to another area that we talked about, which is scalability, right? Doing more work, getting more done without adding more people. So AI can help teams expand their output without expanding the headcount. So a couple examples might be a marketing team using AI to repurpose content across multiple channels, or customer support using AI to respond to customers using the frequently asked questions or the knowledge base that they have to look that up when a customer asks a question, find that information, kind of summarize it, provide it to the customer, and even give them a link back to the original source. Right. Another thing might be microscaling. Right. Some small businesses use AI just to act like a much larger business.
Mm.
So if you can get more done without having to hire more people, you can stay a relatively small business and still kind of compete with larger ones. That is why Advantage Labs in particular has branded around that, because you can help a small business and give them their AI advantage. I'd be curious, like what industries you think could benefit from AI, like using it to scale, using it to talk to clients, using it for content. Like what industries pop in your mind?
Well, actually, it's funny you actually asked that, because I was literally just going off in my own head, because one of my things and one of my dreams that I want to do is I want to, just for funsies, have like a family business of like food trucks. You know what I mean? Selling grilled cheese. I know it's weird. But just tracking inventory, seeing what's sold, tracking metrics, things like that. And that takes a long time. But if I can integrate AI into whatever POS system or inventory system that I have, I could potentially save all that boring basic stuff that I would have to do in the office after I'm done. And yeah, I think that would be how I think it could be incorporated in that business.
Okay. I want to like dive into that, right? Let's take a
Hmm.
look closer at that because I want to clarify like the difference of the systems, the tools that you might use versus where the AI might come in, right?
Okay.
So doing the actual inventory, like having a point of sale system, that's what POS stands for, not piece of shit, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Right.
having I think you said, what was the other thing? Point of sale system and an inventory system sometimes can be the same system. So
Yeah.
you sell your sandwich and your point of sale system records the sale and then removes from your inventory two slices of bread and one slice of cheese, right?
Oh
Just
no.
to keep things
Always two slices of cheese.
two of each then to keep things simple. And now there's no AI involved in any of that, right? Just to be
Hmm.
clear. But you might use AI to generate reports or summarize your business volume for the month or give you ideas on how you could improve your profitability or reduce some costs, right? I'm trying to think where else you might be able to incorporate it, possibly like customer engagement, follow-ups, that type of
Mm.
stuff. But if it's a food truck, you're not usually capturing lead
Well,
information, right?
I mean, kind of. You really, because it's a mobile thing. I mean, you can see and have it track on maybe. I mean, I don't know if it has the capability of doing it on like location based, where you have it hooked up to GPS and then seeing what days of the week have the highest sale rates, and then putting that on a map. Kind of like making it simplify. Like literally anybody could literally hop in that truck and do the most productive route, that could be done.
I think you just came up with a great software as a service, right?
Yeah,
If
I
you're
think I did. Yeah.
if you're a food truck operator, just use our app and we will crawl the internet and you can just give us a zip code and we will tell you about all the events going on in your area and where you need to be parking your
Yeah.
food truck on which days at which times. Ooh, good stuff, man.
Or even where AI can look up the information, like let's say certain things need licensing or something like that. It could probably search out what district that is. Does it require licensing or not to have a food truck in that area, and then provide you with the information even.
I like where your head's at, man. I like it. Another area, right? A third area could be experience, like the customer interactions, customer experience, making them smarter, making them more personalized based on conversation history, based on where they're at, maybe in your deal flow pipeline. AI can see what they've done and what steps they've already taken, maybe conversations you've already had with them, so that you're not reaching out and saying the same thing or asking them for the same information again. How many times have you called your internet service provider and gotten transferred around to 5 different people, and every time you have to authenticate and tell them your name and your address and a million other data points about you, and this could really help, I think, personalize those experiences and make them a whole lot smarter.
Yeah. Nobody likes calling, let alone a computer, let alone a person, Getting the wild goose chase on the phone is probably my least favorite pastime,
Right, right. I can definitely think of several times I've called my ISP, spent an hour on the phone, and got absolutely nothing done.
right?
An hour I'll never get back. All right. So we talked about maybe chatbots,
Mhm.
providing answers instantly to, or maybe tailor recommendations to customers. But I want to definitely zoom in on that. AI is not replacing relationships, right? It's kind of helping take off the mental workload of some of the repetitive tasks so you can show up more and be more personable, right? We have, it's not out yet, but we have released we have recorded an episode with a real estate professional that I'm excited to share with everyone, and it's on how AI is enhancing the human touch in the real estate industry, right? So I'm excited to drop that. That's coming later. Just a quick teaser there. Uh, but yeah, for the way that kind of the one of the takeaways there is that AI can bring a more human touch to customer support at scale, like at a large scale. Have you seen anybody actually improve their customer experiences with AI or maybe make them worse because they're using AI or automation?
I haven't really seen too much. I think maybe like, when you get the chatbots, they're a little bit better. I've seen that a little bit of improvement there, but like kind of a newbie, on this subject. So
Yeah. Well, I like that you said that the chatbots are getting better because some of like used to, you go to a chatbot and you'd maybe click two or three options on a menu, and you kind of had this like predefined little tree that you would get routed through. And if you didn't, if you're, if what you were trying to resolve didn't match any of the two or three little buttons, then you're kind of stuck, right? And now you can just type a question in directly, and with an LLM on the other side, it can help navigate a whole lot more effectively than you trying to click and navigate your way through their little customer support tree, if that makes sense.
I don't can't remember if you mentioned and explained it in the first episode, but LMN, can we or what is it again?
Yeah. LLM, it stands for large language model, and it's essentially it's what's behind ChatGPT. When you are interacting with ChatGPT, for example, or Claude or DeepSeek or any of these models, on the other side of that is a model. It's a large language model, which is essentially just a file that has been trained on a lot of data,
Okay.
including a lot of data from the internet. And it's all just compressed data into this file that you can download. That's anywhere from like maybe a gigabyte to, I think I've seen some, over 100 gigabytes.
Oh wow.
So, but it's just a single file that has a lot of data compressed into it. And that's what you're interacting with. When you use AI a lot of the times.
Yeah. And does it add on itself over time? Like if I use like certain chatbot and it's got access to this LLM, when I ask it a question, can it update and like expand upon that further or no?
That's a great question. So, sort of. It depends, is the answer. The short answer is no, right? The short answer is that
Okay.
file itself is like a static file. Is what it is. But when you connect that file to a memory source like a vector database, that's how it gets to be self-improving or to learn about the person it's interacting with, right? So, for
Wait, hold
example,
up.
if you're
What's a vector database?
a vector database is essentially a 3D database.
Okay.
Most databases are in two dimensions, right? They
Yeah.
have tables with rows and columns. A vector database instead is in 3D, has rows and columns and probably something else. I don't know what
So it
it
looks
is.
like a cube.
Right.
We had
Instead
to
of a
make a
square.
shape. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of a square table, it looks like a cube.
Okay.
And it's just more efficient to store the data in that way. And what's stored in there usually is actually numbers. When you interact with ChatGPT, you get numbers, right? Now before we get too off on a tangent, I want to come back to AI and its value in business, and specifically, where is AI overhyped, right? And things to look out for. Because I want to mention, not every problem needs AI,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes there are better systems out there or better habits that solve more than just using AI for it. So, some areas that I think are probably overhyped are AI is going to replace everybody in marketing or everybody who's a designer, right? I think
Personal
that's a little,
assistants.
well, I mean, I think it's a little oversimplified, right? Virtual
Gotcha.
assistants have various skills, right? They're not all created equally.
Yeah.
AI tools will make you go viral instantly, right? Like that's a unrealistic expectation. You need AI for everything, right? You might have heard for that. You might have heard of something like that, right? But
Yeah.
no, you got to clarify what actually matters. You got to clarify the objective, the result that you're looking for, right? You don't need AI for everything. Also, want to share like some reality checks, right? Does it so on that note, for things that are overhyped, if you're trying to figure out if it's overhyped or not, right? Here's a
Okay.
reality check framework that you can use, right? If you're trying to figure this out, does it actually save time to reach my objective? Does it increase accuracy or consistency? And then does it improve customer experience? And if it doesn't do those things, it's probably just shiny object syndrome.
Okay. Do you have an example of that? Like something that you've seen personally?
Something I've seen that's a shiny object.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, I got an example for you. So, content generation, right? it really comes down to not every content generation system is created equally. Because some people think, well, content generation is going to replace human content like entirely, right? And
Hmm.
that I would say like you probably have seen some pretty horrible AI content, right? That
Oh
didn't
yeah.
go that didn't like go anywhere. Another example I would give is AI replacing support, like a chatbot completely replacing human support, right? It can't do everything. It can't right now, at least. We're probably not going to allow a chatbot to issue you a refund without a human taking a look at it, right? Probably not going to allow a chatbot to make big decisions about your account or send you an invoice, right? Just based off of like a limited interaction, right? Without context. So definitely some examples where it doesn't save time because then you
Yeah.
might just
So
run around in circles.
yeah, that's like the high tech versus high touch. You know what I mean? Just imagine if they replaced AI, HR, excuse me. And you got fired by like chatbot. You know, what I mean, I don't think that's gonna go over really well.
Oh, your example is way better than mine. I love it. All right. All right. So let's talk about measuring real ROI. You can't manage what you don't measure, even with AI. So I like to encourage people to do small experiments, to pick a process, automate one part of it, track the results, see if it's saving you time, see if it's saving you money, see if it's making you money, right? So a good example is maybe you write movies, right? Maybe you write
Hmm.
a script
Screenwriter,
and
yeah.
yeah, you're a screenwriter. How long is it going to take you to write a scene? Maybe it takes you a couple hours before, and now you use AI and it helps you out and it takes you 20 minutes now, right? So that's not a big, long process or workflow, right? But that's just an
Hmm.
easy way to see time savings there. But if you're doing something like customer outreach or customer support, or you're using a chatbot for customer support, what can you measure, right? You can measure how many tickets did we get last month? What was our average time to resolve those tickets? What was our average customer satisfaction? And then after you implement AI into your chatbot, not just an old school menu, but actually having an LLM behind your chatbot,
Hmm.
then you look at those same metrics and see what got better, what improved, and what maybe did not improve. Definitely make sure that we're measuring the ROI in that way. So I want people to, if you're a business owner, if you're a business leader out there, you want to think about creating space for your team, right? AI should create space for your team to do more with less. It should not add stress for your team.
For sure, for sure.
All right. So with that, we're going to kind of wrap up a little bit. A key takeaway, a couple key takeaways from today's episode. The real value of AI is in solving real problems, right? Not
Hmm.
chasing tools, not trying to figure out which tool should I use. Different tools are good at different things. Now, I want to emphasize like three pillars when it comes to deciding about using AI in your business, and that's efficiency, scalability, and experience. Is it going to be more efficient for your team? Is it going to help you scale more? Or is it going to make this experience better? Next thing is, I would like to challenge all of our listeners to take one task. Think about one task in your business that feels repetitive or manual or frustrating, and test an AI tool that you think might help you with that, right? Try that out in the next week or so. And the next time that John and I hop on together, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we are going to, in episode 3 of the AI for Beginners series, we're going to be talking about getting started with your first AI workflow. I hope we'll see you there. I've had a lot of fun. John, thanks for hopping on.
Thank you, Sheridan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Everybody, this is your host, Sheridan, and we are signing off.